everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 albums that I would take to a deserted island. So if I had to go to a deserted island and I could only take 10 albums with me and then I could never ever listen to any other albums again, these are the ones that I would take. I've seen a few other YouTubers do this and I love watching these types of videos because it's so interesting to see people's personal attachment to certain albums and why they would choose them, and it's just really interesting. And I've got fairly eclectic taste when it comes to the music I listen to, so it was really hard for me to put this list together, and I've thought long and hard about it and I've come up with 10 albums that I literally just could not live without. They might not be like my favorite albums of all time, but I've tried to choose like a mixture of albums, and these are the ones that I just couldn't live without, just could not live without. And as always, let me know your choices in the comments because I would be really interested to see what kind of albums you guys would take to a deserted island. And of course, let me know what you think of my choices. So the first album I've gone for is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. Any of the early Genesis albums could have made it onto this list, to be honest, but I've gone with The Lamb Lies Down because I'm pretty sure it's the longest, so I've tried to be strategic and give myself more listening hours and just give myself the most music to listen to so I don't get bored, because I could imagine it's pretty boring stuck on a deserted island. I also think this one could provide me with lots of entertainment because it's quite a theatrical album. Obviously it's a concept album, so it tells a story and it takes you through loads of different emotions and moods, and I love all of Peter Gabriel's different voices and stuff, and it's basically like a movie. If you close your eyes you can just imagine what's going on. So I think this album would provide a decent amount of entertainment, and of course the music is just beautiful. So yeah, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is my first pick. So my second pick is a little bit of a different one. I've gone for Disguise by Motionless in White. I've picked this one because I'm really into metal music, so I had to bring one like heavier album with me, and Motionless in White are probably one of my favorite metal bands, probably my favorite actually. And the second track on the album, Headache, is one of my favorite songs of all time, and I really just don't think I could go the rest of my life without listening to it. I also think I would really miss having some like really loud, heavy screaming vocals because it's such a big part of my life and music I like to listen to when I'm in a bad mood or angry, and this album has got me through some tough times in my life, so I would just have to bring it along with me because yeah, it just means a lot to me. For my third choice, I've gone with just an absolute stone cold classic, The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I was going to choose The Wall, but I changed it last minute just because I really just feel like I could not go the rest of my life without listening to The Dark Side of the Moon. It has so many memories attached to it for me, and although it's not my favourite Pink Floyd album, hearing it for the first time was like a huge moment in my life, and it just means a lot to me and brings back lots of positive memories for me. So I think it would be a useful tool to have on a deserted island in terms of like keeping my spirits high. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the best selling albums of all time for a reason. It is just that good. So for my fourth choice, I'm gonna go with Folklore by Taylor Swift. I had to include one Taylor Swift album on this list because I just adore her, and it was either going to be between Folklore or Evermore because I think they're great albums to have on a deserted island because they're so like dreamy and beautiful. And out of the two, Folklore is my favourite. I just love this album so much. Like, you can cry to it, you can dance to it, you can laugh to it, and the amazing storytelling on this album means that it's a really good like tool for escapism. Songs like The Last Great American Dynasty, Betty, Cardigan, August, The Lakes, they're so beautifully written and full of just like amazing metaphors and just so much gorgeous imagery. To be honest, I think this album has Taylor's best songwriting of all time, and I just can't get over how talented she is. So even though I could have brought any of her albums because they're all amazing, I think I'll just have to go with Folklore. So I know I said I wasn't going to include like all my favorite albums of all time or anything, but I do have to obviously include my all-time favorite album of all time because obviously it's my favorite album of all time. There is no way on earth I could ever live without this album for even more than 2 days. And if you have watched this channel for a while, you'll probably know what I'm gonna say, but it is of course The Fragile by 9 Inch Nails. As I said, this is my favourite album of all time. Like, this is my #1 absolute bury me with this album. I love it more than anything, and it also is a double album. I think it's got 23 songs, so it's long enough to keep me entertained for a while. And also the scope of this album is just insane. It has so many different moods and vibes. It's basically got something for every single mood you're in. Songs like La Mer, The Frail, The Great Below are really like mellow and kind of like ballady, relaxing songs. And then there are songs like The Wretched, No You Don't, Just Like You Imagined, The Big Come Down, Where Is Everybody, that you can scream at the top of your lungs if you're angry. And then there's like super catchy songs like Please, We're In This Together, Starfuckers. I mean, the list goes on. Like, every single song is so important and so crucial to this album, and I love them all so much in their own way. So yeah, as much as I would miss the Downward Spiral if I couldn't take that to the island with me, I just have to have the Fragile with me, because honestly I don't really go a day without listening to it, and there would be like a hole in my heart if I didn't have it with me. Next up is another one that is super personal to me, and it's a massive one from my childhood, Ocean Eyes by Owl City. I don't know if I've mentioned this before on this channel, but I am like an Owl City super fan. Adam Young, who is Owl City, if you didn't know, it's just one person, is one of my favourite people ever, and he is criminally underrated as a lyricist and a producer and a pioneer in the genre. And his music is so clever and so unique, and it really just goes unnoticed a lot of the time. Honestly, this is a topic I am very passionate about, but I'll save it for another video. And the reason I would take this album is because it's just really like uplifting. Most of the songs are quite joyful and dreamy and beautiful and put me in a great mood when I listen to it, and it's also very different from all the other albums on this list, so it would give me a bit of variety. And as I said, it just has a lot of personal meaning to me, probably more than any other album in the world. Owl City was actually like, I think it was my first concert when I was about, I think I was 12 or 13. It was one of the first concerts that I went to, and I was just obsessed with Owl City at the time, and I just cried the whole way through the concert from start to finish, just bawled my eyes out, like with happiness. But the whole thing is just such a happy memory to me, and you should go and listen to the album if you haven't heard it. So my 7th pick is going to be my beloved In Absentia by Porcupine Tree. I love this album so much, I just had to include it on this list. It was really difficult for me to choose a Porcupine Tree album actually to put on this list. I've been listening to a lot of Lightbulb Sun recently, and I'm really loving that. And obviously I'm always obsessed with Fear of a Blank Planet, but I just think In Absentia has some of the strongest songs in the Porcupine Tree discography, and some songs that I could just genuinely never live without. Like, the thought of never hearing songs like Trains, The Sound of Muzak, Gravity Eyelids, Wedding Nails, like the thought of never hearing those songs again is a life that I am not prepared to live. So yeah, this one would just have to come with me. Also, again, this is a super personal one to me. I started listening to it for the first time when I was like going through a bit of a rough time in my life. I was struggling with a few things, and this album really helped me through that. And I really just generally think it's a true masterpiece, a musical masterpiece from start to finish. And again, has a mix of different songs, like some happy, some sad, some instrumental tracks, some like slower kind of ballads, and then there's some like heavier, more metal kind of tracks. This album was just like ridiculously ahead of its time, and I just love it. Now, my 8th choice is a bit of a random one, but I just really had to include this one. And it's going to be the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers by Howard Shore. Now, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is my favourite film of all time. It has been for well over a decade. I adore that movie with my whole heart, and the soundtrack is just so iconic. I kind of feel like if I can't have any movies with me on this island, then I can at least bring the soundtrack to my favourite film, and then if I just close my eyes I can kind of just imagine like I'm watching it in my head. But I mean, apart from it being the soundtrack to my favourite film and therefore like have great memories for me, the music is just absolutely stunning. It's so atmospheric and obviously very like dramatic and theatrical at times, which I just love, and it's the type of music that you can really just get lost in and get transported over to Middle Earth. So I just think this would be a really great one to have with me on a deserted island. My ninth pick is another stone cold classic, Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. I chose this one because every song is so different and so unique. And again, it's kind of that thing of like, there's a range of songs. There's like a song for every mood. There's like love songs and breakup songs. And I would probably be missing my boyfriend quite a lot if I was stuck on a deserted island. So I would probably need that type of music. It's not a particularly long album, but there is enough music to keep you busy. It's obviously super accessible and really easy to listen to. And I just love Stevie's voice. It's so magical. And again, this is one of those albums that can kind of like cheer me up. It's kind of a go-to album for me if I'm in like a particularly bad mood. And my final choice was a tricky one because I knew I wanted to include something by Paul McCartney because he's one of my favourite artists of all time and I listen to all of his music a lot. Obviously, there's so many albums to choose from with him. There's obviously Beatles albums, Wings albums, and then all of his solo stuff. But in the end, this might be like a weird choice, but I've decided to go with the Paul McCartney solo album, Egypt Station. I honestly adore every single song on this album, and I think it's one that people don't really talk about enough. I don't hear people really talk about this one. And a lot of people dismiss Paul's later albums unfairly, in my opinion, because I think his last kind of, all the albums he released in the last 5 years have actually been really, really solid albums. McCartney 3 was great, Egypt Station, New, Kisses on the Bottom. I love all of those albums. They're all amazing, but I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Egypt Station. It's got some really, really well-written songs. Some of Paul's best lyrics are actually on this album, most notably the song Despite Repeated Warnings, which I could rave about all day. I love that song. Genuinely a top 5 McCartney song for me. Also, the song Dominoes is gorgeous and a really personal one to me. The closing track, Hunt You Down, is another great one. I mean, it's not a perfect album, but it is a really, really fun one. There's a lot of upbeat, fun songs. And I just think this is a really great album and showcases a lot of different styles of Paul's music that he's incorporated over the years. So yeah, would have to bring this one with me. So there are my top 10 albums that I would take to a deserted island. As always, please let me know what you think of the albums I've chosen in the comments. And obviously leave yours down below as well because I'd love to see them. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. My next video is going to be another worst to best albums video and I'll be doing the Beatles. So I'll see you all next week for that.